Hi guys, today we're going to do the notes for chapter 10, section 4. It's about the rise of Christianity. Just like every chapter, we talk about the religious beliefs of the people of that civilization. I just want to remind you that whatever you came into this lesson with for your religious beliefs is what you should leave this lesson with. I'm simply teaching you what our textbook says about this. And you guys can go back to the scan at the top of the assignment page in Canvas and look through the textbook if you want to read this section for yourself. You may absolutely do that, either as an option instead of listening to this notes, or you may just do both if you choose. Anyway, if you have questions, I would be happy to answer those questions for you. And of course, I would also encourage you to discuss your family's religious beliefs with your parents, mom, dad, whoever takes care of you, grandparents. I'm sure that they would be happy to discuss that with you as well. All right, let's get into this. So we're talking about the ancient Roman Empire. And in ancient Rome, they believed in the gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus, just like the ancient Greeks did. So the ancient Greeks, they believed in Zeus and Poseidon, Athena, Hera, all of those all of those Greek gods and goddesses. They just called them by different names. So for instance, the Romans called Zeus Jupiter, and they called Poseidon Neptune. And most of them had names that were something to do with astronomy or the planets. All right, so if we look at this map, the peachy orange area is the Roman Empire, and you can see it goes pretty far, and it's on 3 continents. I hope you guys caught that. It is in Europe. This is Spain, France, Italy, running through here, Germany, okay? And then this is the northern edge of Africa, right? So here we've got, this is the Sinai Peninsula right here. Here's Egypt, where we studied earlier this year. And then here we are into Asia over here, right? Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, all through here. So this peachy orange area is the original empire, or what we're talking about in the beginning of our notes. And by the time that we get to the end of today's notes, this red area is going to be included in their empire. So it stretches pretty far and wide. All right, if you don't know about Jesus and his life story, I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. Remember, the Romans originally were polytheistic, believing in these gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus. And they all believed it and embraced it, just like, you can think today about people, how they feel about their religion. People who are religious are pretty passionate about it and have strong beliefs. And the ancient Romans did too, about their gods and goddesses. So when this guy shows up, this Jesus guy shows up, there's a lot of people that are pretty worked up about it, because people don't want to be told that maybe their religion is not the right religion. And that's what he was doing. And people who were following him were trying to say, you're on the wrong path. And so they were pretty upset about that. Okay, so I think back around the holidays, we were talking about holidays around the world. And I had shared information with you back then, but I'm going to recap pretty quickly what happened, the events that were taking place around the time of Jesus's birth. So Mary is from this town called Nazareth, and Joseph is from Jerusalem. And around the time that she was pregnant with Jesus, King Herod from Syria had heard this prophecy, and we've talked about prophecy. I hope you remember that a prophecy is like a prediction about the future. And lots of civilizations made prophecies, right? The Greeks had the great oracle of Delphi. The Egyptians had prophecy that they studied. Of course, the Mayans were crazy into prophecy. And the people from Israel and the Roman Empire, they also believed in prophecy. So the king of Syria, which is in Asia, on the edge of the Roman Empire, this king had heard that there was this prophecy that the king of all kings was coming, and he was very concerned that this particular king was going to come and take over his kingdom. And so he was fearful for that. Of course, he didn't want to lose his kingdom, so he tells his army that they are going to be on the lookout for this new king, okay? He doesn't know that this prophecy is about this new child that's about to be born. And so he hears about the three wise men. I think you guys probably heard of them. And he invites them to his palace, and he wants to question them about what they know. And so as they're sharing this meal together, one of the wise men says, this prophecy is not about a man, it's about a child that has not come yet. And so what King Herod decides to do is send his army out, and they are going to go to Israel, find this person. He thinks the way that he can get every Israelite, every person who is a Hebrew, the way that he can get them back into Israel to find this particular person who is going to be who the prophecy is about, is he's going to order a census. A census is when a government has all of their people be counted to find out how many people are actually in a place. I think we talked about the census a little bit. So every year in the every 10 years, in the United States, we do a census. And it's at the start of each decade. So this year is a census year. Hopefully, once all this craziness with coronavirus goes away, we'll be able to do our census too. But it's just to get a count of the population and gather different statistics. So King Herod says, we're going to do a census. Everyone is to report back to the town that they were born in to be counted. So Joseph tells Mary that they need to leave Nazareth and go together. She's going to go with him to Jerusalem so that he can be counted for the census. As they approach Jerusalem, everybody's traveling, right, for this census. And so when they get to Jerusalem, there is nowhere for them to stay. If you've heard the story, they keep going to different inns, asking if they can stay there because Mary has gone into labor, and they keep hearing, I'm sorry, we have no room at this inn. And the reason for that is everybody's traveling because of the census trying to get to their hometown. So Jesus is born in Bethlehem. When they get to Bethlehem, after he is born, they're sleeping. Joseph is awoken during the night by an angel, it's said, who tells them that they are in danger because King Herod, his army has arrived, and they are looking for this little boy who is what the prophecy is about. And he tells, the angel Gabriel tells Joseph to get Mary and the baby and to flee. And so they go to Egypt, and they stay there for a couple of months until they are told again by this angel that it's safe to return home. So that is kind of their travel path when Jesus comes into the world, and kind of what's going on, where it starts out with this not good stuff going on in the world at that time. So Jesus was born in Judah, this territory, Bethlehem, of course, but the country was called Judah. Today we call it Israel. And most of what we know about him comes from the New Testament, which is the second half of the modern Bible. At the beginning of the year, when we talked about the first civilization in Mesopotamia, we talked about the Hebrews, and we talked about their Bible, which was called the Torah, and it is the first half of the modern day Bible. All right, so he was Jewish, and he traveled to synagogues and homes. A lot of students think that Jesus was a Christian, but he wasn't a Christian. Christians worship or study Christ, and he didn't worship or study himself. He was actually a Hebrew. And so he would travel to Jewish churches and homes to preach, and he chose 12 people to follow him and help with his teaching. He called them his apostles, and sometimes they're referred to as disciples. And so what he was teaching was monotheism, and this is not something that the Romans wanted to accept. He said that there was only one God, and that if you were good and you lived a good life and did good things, that when you died, you would get to heaven, basically. And the Romans could not accept that because that is not what they had been following and living by for thousands of years. So he has all of these miracles that he had performed in his lifetime, and his message starts to spread because people are talking about what they have witnessed. And, if you saw some of these things happen, it would be really hard to keep it to yourself. So everybody's kind of gossiping quietly about this guy, Jesus, and they're not entirely sure it just seems like so unbelievable. And so everyone's talking about it. Well, the Roman leaders hear about this guy, and they hear about all of these gatherings of people, and who people are saying that he is. And they arrest him because they say what he has done is blasphemous. In other words, he said something bad about God. And when they say God, they mean the Roman gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus. So that is the crime that they believe that he has committed. Now, most of the Roman citizens didn't think he had done anything wrong. They thought, even if this guy was not being truthful about what he claimed to be, that he hadn't done anything wrong. But Roman leaders wanted him to be crucified for what he did. They felt like he was stirring up trouble in their civilization and a kind of unrest among the citizens. So according to the New Testament, they say that he was crucified on the cross, and 3 days after he was crucified, that he arose from the dead, and that his followers discovered that he had arose from the dead. And this made people believe even more that he was who he said he was. After his death, some of his disciples continued to spread his word and his message, and they were trying to gather more and more people who were now becoming what they called a Christian. By the year 100 AD, this is about 65-ish years after Jesus had been crucified, many people in Rome called themselves Christians. Now, at first, Christians were persecuted for their beliefs. That means they were treated badly or unfavorably because they identified as a Christian. And so the Christians at that time, they started to refuse to worship the emperor as a god, like we've talked in other civilizations where they thought that the leader was part God. They said, no, I can't believe that. I believe in this guy. I believe in Jesus. And so since I do, I cannot accept any other gods. And a lot of the Christians were killed. The punishment was that they would be killed or executed or crucified for their belief. Quite commonly, they would be sent to the Colosseum and forced to fight wild animals or gladiators at the Colosseum. In the year 313 AD, the new emperor at that time, his name was Constantine, made it illegal to treat Christians badly and to execute them for their beliefs. And he said that Christianity would be equal to all other religions. And then, of course, in the year 380 AD, Christianity became the official religion in Rome. Today, Rome is the epicenter for Catholics. It's where the Vatican is at. The Pope, who is, of course, like the boss of all religions, is in Rome. So Christianity, being Catholicism, of course, is a Christian religion, is still a major theme in Rome. And they have gotten away from that idea of the gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus. All right, I hope you guys found this to be good information and something new for us to learn about. We have crossed over the year 0 and we are not going back. So we are out of ancient times and we are into modern times, the Common Era. And we're going to keep moving forward from here. We've got a little bit more to cover for ancient Rome. Of course, I know you guys want to hear about the Colosseum and gladiator stuff. So that is coming this week, the rest of this week. And then we'll wrap up this chapter and start getting into the medieval times. Hope you guys liked it. I will talk to you soon.